Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take the sources you're curious about, pull out the key knowledge, and really try to make it stick.
Yeah, we dig in so you get the insights you need.
So today we're opening our third eye, so to speak, to THIIRD magazine. That's THIIRD, but pronounced third. It's an independent voice in, well, fashion, arts, and culture.
Exactly. And we're using their fact sheet as our main source today. It really paints a picture of a publication that's making waves, not just in print. They have this glossy magazine, but also online.
Right, and they do podcasts and events, too.
Yeah, a whole ecosystem. And what really stands out is their mission. They're aiming to be this truly inclusive platform for social groups that you just don't see enough of in the mainstream.
Yeah, and that strapline they have really nails it, doesn't it? Intersectional magazines celebrating culture, diversity, and heritage. Keep your third eye open.
It does. It immediately tells you their perspective.
You get the strong sense that, for them, the personal is political.
Absolutely. They state it quite plainly. Something like, on glossy mag pages, over the radio and through events, we centralize the thought, being, and art of people of color, queer, trans, and non-binary people, and others with underrepresented backgrounds.
So it's not just lip service.
No, not at all. It's about fundamentally changing whose stories get the spotlight and how those stories are told.
And the person behind this is Rona Azuma, the founder and editor-in-chief.
That's right. And her background is really key here. She's a Black British Nigerian woman, and she actually worked in mainstream publishing before starting THIIRD.
Ah, okay, so she saw the gaps firsthand.
Exactly. She saw which stories, particularly from diverse perspectives like her own, just weren't getting published.
So THIIRD isn't just pointing out the problem.
No, it's actively doing something about it. It's challenging those, really narrow beauty ideals that have dominated magazines for so long.
Right.
They're building a community, giving real opportunities to artists and activists who want to see social change. It feels much more than just a magazine.
Okay, so let's unpack the thinking behind it a bit. The fact sheet mentions it's informed by critical theory, things that eco-thinkers like Paul Gilroy and Bill Hooks.
Yeah, definitely. You can see threads of decolonial thought and intersectional feminism running right through their whole ethos. They seem very aware of power structures.
So intersectionality, the idea that different aspects of identity like race, gender, sexuality, can overlap and create unique experiences of marginalization.
Precisely. They get that someone's experience isn't defined by just one thing. So THIIRD is deliberately making space for voices that sit at those intersections, voices that often get pushed right to the edges.
Okay, and that name, THIIRD, with the three I's, THIIIRD, that has to mean something specific.
Oh, absolutely. It's very layered. It connects to three core concepts.
Yeah.
THIIRD space theory, THIIRD kid culture, and the third eye.
Right. Can we break those down a little? What's third space theory?
So, in simple terms, it's about that space that opens up when different cultures meet, particularly a dominant culture and a marginalized one. It's a dynamic space where new ideas, new identities can form. A kind of hybrid space.
Okay. And third kid culture.
That refers to the experience of kids, often immigrants or children of immigrants, who grow up navigating their parents' culture alongside the culture of the country they live in. They often create their own unique blend, a third culture.
Makes sense. And the third eye.
That's more philosophical, often linked to Hindu traditions. It represents inner wisdom, intuition, seeing beyond the surface level, deeper perception.
Wow. So the name itself is packed with meaning about navigating these in-between spaces, cultural fusion, and seeing things differently. That's really clever.
It really is. And they bring this philosophy to life in their actual output. They have this annual glossy print magazine.
Right. Often with themes, like journeys or defiant beauty.
Exactly. Issue 6, Body Movements, focused on inclusivity in sports. Great example.
And the website complements that.
Yeah, the website has articles, promotes events. It's more media, perhaps, a digital extension. And then there's the Third Waves podcast.
Hosted by Ronan Mellon.
Daniela Hornskoff's son and DJ Tribe. Again, a team with a diverse backgrounds, which really comes through in their discussions about culture, activism, representation, access, all those key themes.
And it's important to note, isn't it, that the team is largely voluntary or freelance.
Yes, and profits get reinvested. It really underlines that this is mission-driven, not primarily commercial.
Okay, so our goal here is to explore THIIRD through that Ediquis A-level media studies lens, looking at media language, representation, audience, and media industries, and of course, placing it all in its social and cultural context.
Sounds good. Where should we start media language?
Yeah, let's dive into media language first. How does THIIRD actually look and feel?
Well, they've definitely got a very distinctive house style. It's consistent across print and digital. Think minimalist, modern, but with these pops of vibrant
And
color.
not much text, more visual.
Exactly. Photography is really foregrounded. The layout lets the images breathe. Branding is strong, but clean.
So when you hit the website, what's the first impression?
You see these really striking scrolling portraits, mostly people of color, some fashion shots, the print covers, all against this quite calm purple background. The masthead, third in white, is very clear.
And that scrolling strapline at the bottom.
Yeah, amplifying underrepresented voices. It's
Yeah.
right there, constantly reinforcing their core message visually.
You mentioned color. How does that work?
They use these bold blocks of contrasting color, maybe a bright orange or green against the purple. It really makes you look at specific things, their manifesto, info about who they are, and importantly, pictures of the editorial team.
Ah, showing the team itself.
Yes, and visibly diverse race, gender, mostly women. Plus, they often link to the team's Instagram accounts. It feels very open, very community-focused.
Let's talk about the masthead and logo, the THIRD name itself.
Right, it's in this classical-looking sans serif font, all uppercase. It gives off a feeling of, well, authority, confidence, maybe?
And the logo, those three pillars.
Yeah, right in the middle. It directly mirrors the three eyes in the name, visually referencing those concepts we talked about, third space, third kid, third eye. It's like classical architecture almost, but modern. Very smart branding.
Okay, and how are the actual stories presented online?
They tend to use a clean white background for the articles themselves. This lets these really strong, sometimes quite enigmatic images dominate.
And the text.
Short, intriguing captions, enough to pique your interest.
Yeah.
You see things like Swim Dem Crew or Skater UK or the Let's Let Black Boys Smile project. Do you want to click and find out more?
So how do all these elements, the layout, color, photos, text, work together to create meaning? Let's take that first image you often see on the homepage, the young black model.
Yes, the low angle shot, medium close up.
That one?
Okay, so that shot is packed with meaning. The low angle makes her look, well, quite regal, powerful even. The customized vintage hat she's wearing, with the diamantes and that red chiffon scarf, it carries all sorts of cultural connotations. Different people will read it differently.
And the colors link up.
Definitely. Notice the purple eyeshadow matching the website's background. And the red accents in her outfit connect to other design elements. It feels very cohesive. She's presented as important, central to THIIRD's world.
Yeah, she feels almost like an emblem for the magazine.
Mm.
And then there's that other image you sometimes see, the two women with intricate braids.
Right, embracing, looking right at you. It feels very intimate, draws you in.
So this is where we start seeing how the media language carries particular viewpoints, ideologies.
Exactly. Look closely at that first model again, tucked into her headdress.
Is that a packet of plantain fufu?
Africa's finest plantain fufu, yeah.
Okay, so that's a really specific cultural reference. It's playful, maybe a bit postmodern. For some viewers, that will resonate really strongly, perhaps a closed cultural reference for others.
And the logo on her top, UOOYA. Yes, and the fact sheet tells us that UOOYA is a Chinese fashion brand.
But not just any brand.
No, it specifically challenges white-centric beauty norms in China and focuses on size inclusivity. So the brand itself has an ideology.
Right. So putting these references together, the fufu packet, the UOYA logo, it connects directly back to THIRD's core message, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's about these intersecting cultural heritages, finding expression in that third space. This model isn't just wearing clothes. She embodies this mix, this intersectionality. She's presented as admirable, someone to respect.
It feels like a real counterpoint to traditional fashion imagery. Does this connect to ideas like Baudrillard's postmodernism at all? The idea of images becoming detached from reality?
That's an interesting thought. THIRD definitely uses rich visuals and cultural references, which you could see as postmodern. But I think their fundamental aim is different from Baudrillard's concept of simulacra, where images replace reality.
How so?
While THIRD seems really focused on highlighting real, lived experiences, they're trying to bring stories and realities that are often invisible in the mainstream into the picture. It's about authenticity, even within a stylized image. The people feel relatable.
Okay, that makes sense. So moving on to representation. It feels like this isn't just one aspect of THIRD, kind of the whole point.
I'd say so, yeah. Discussing representation, amplifying underrepresented voices and issues, that seems to be their primary reason for existing.
And you see that immediately on the homepage.
Oh, yeah. You see features on artists like Kokoroko, the Afrobeat group, or UKTS, the Muslim women skaters, or Fatima, the Afghan footballer, plus these incredibly empowering images. Black models with vitiligo, plus-size models, trans women celebrating their heritage. It's diversity in action.
And the print issues tackle specific themes related to representation, like access, or defiant beauty, or body movements.
Exactly. Each theme directly challenges dominant ideas or explores barriers. The website might be a bit less thematically driven issue by issue, but the commitment to diverse representation is constant.
And we need to remember the context here, right? The media landscape in the UK and globally.
Still dominated by certain groups, particularly white males in ownership and key roles. Our fact sheet mentions the stats, and Ronazuma's own experience backs this up. She felt there just wasn't space for her stories rooted in her background in the mainstream.
So THIIRD is deliberately stepping into that gap. Not just tokenism, but a genuine platform.
Absolutely. They make very conscious choices. They explicitly celebrate culture, heritage, diversity. They focus on groups marginalized by mainstream inequalities, often linked to patriarchy, colonialism.
And give them space to share their perspectives.
Exactly. Perspectives that might challenge the status quo offer something new.
They also feature interviews with successful women, but you mentioned these aren't typical celebrity pieces.
No, not really about attracting fans or selling products. It's more about presenting role models, exploring their journeys, how they overcame discrimination. It's about inspiration and offering different narratives of success.
Like the Monroe Bergdorf interview from 2017.
Yes, that's a key example. THIIRD featured her quite early on, presenting her as this important activist and trans woman. The photos, those low-angle shots, position her as a figure of authority, someone to look up to.
And the quote highlights her courage in starting difficult conversations about race, class, gender.
Right. It shows THIIRD's commitment to platforming those crucial, sometimes uncomfortable dialogues early on. They champion emerging talent tackling big issues.
Any other examples that stand out?
The interview, Swimming the Race with Rebecca Akang Ajulu Bushell, is powerful. The first Black woman to swim for Team GB.
Wow.
And her story really highlights intersectionality, how her racial identity felt different, was perceived differently in the UK versus South Africa versus Kenya.
Fascinating. And what about the Personal is Political project? What is gender on the website?
Yes, that uses video interviews really effectively. Young people talking about what gender means to them.
And it's not just about pronouns.
No, it encompasses everything: identity, sexuality, race, faith, family, culture. It really shows gender as fluid, complex, socially constructed. Very insightful.
It also sounds like they aim for a sense of realism in some features, like in issue 6, body movements, with the Nike London Grant Initiative.
Definitely. They've featured charities supported by that grant, like the SMILE Boys Project. They interviewed and photographed ordinary people in their own environments, like boxing clubs or community centers in parts of London facing deprivation.
Humanizing them, moving beyond stereotypes.
Exactly. Especially with the SMILE Boys Project, it was about challenging negative stereotypes of young Black men and promoting positive mental health narratives. Very grounded.
This connects strongly with Stuart Hall's ideas on representation, doesn't it? THIIRD seems to be actively working against stereotyping.
Absolutely. Hall talked about how media constructs meaning and how stereotyping reduces people to simplified characteristics. THIIRD does the opposite. It amplifies complexity, showcases togetherness amongst diverse groups, and gives voice to the othered, inviting empathy.
And what about David Gauntlet's theories of identity?
Gauntlet talks about how media provides resources for us to construct our identities. THIIRD offers such a rich, diverse range of role models and stories. It really allows audiences to pick and mix aspects that resonate with their own sense of self, far beyond narrow mainstream offerings.
And bell hooks. Intersectionality is clearly central.
Right. THIIRD explicitly calls itself an intersectional feminist magazine. It's reclaiming that third space for voices marginalized by overlapping systems of oppression, race, gender, class, sexuality. That's Hook's core concept in action.
And Paul Gilroy's ideas about ethnicity and post-colonialism seem relevant too.
Very much so. Gilroy critiques essentialist ideas of race and culture. THIIRD embraces that complexity, the idea of diasporic identities, hybridity, shared cultures shaped by colonial history, but moving beyond it. It's about decolonizing perspectives, rejecting ethnocentric truths.
Okay, let's shift gears to media industries. How does a small independent magazine like THIIRD actually survive and operate?
Well, it's definitely a challenge. Funding is key. They started with founder investment, but now use a mix of strategies. The web magazine is crucial for promoting print sales, events, the podcast, trying to drive purchases and
They
contributions.
see print as the holy grail,
That's the term they used, yeah. But they know the other channels, podcasts, social media, website events are vital for reach and community building.
and print is expensive to produce.
It is around 3,000 copies an issue. Some sell out, which is great. They have international distribution now too via Raw and Ollie, reaching places like New York, Amsterdam. But yeah, print costs money and so does maintaining the website and online shop.
And the ownership structure clearly shapes the content.
Absolutely. Rona Azuma's statement about being women-run, black-owned, with a diverse team platforming marginalized voices. That's not just talk. It reflects their reality and drives their choices.
Especially when you compare it to the wider industry stats.
Right. The NCTJ review showing the lack of diversity in journalism. THIIRD is actively working with BIPOC and genderqueer creatives. That's a conscious industry choice.
Did industry recognition, like that Somerset House exhibition tearing it up, help?
Undoubtedly. Getting that kind of validation, being highlighted as part of this wave of independent magazines focused on ideas before profit, that brings attention and credibility.
And they don't really do traditional advertising.
Largely, no. They position themselves as a cultural enterprise, not purely commercial, so they have to be resourceful, looking for grants, maybe support from trusts. Rona Azuma's own styling work might open doors for partnerships, too.
So those fashion shoots with branded clothes aren't paid ads, usually?
Probably not directly, no, but commissions from other work help pay the team. And they do have that partnerships link, showing they're open to collaborations.
Like the Nike London Grand Initiative in 2022.
Exactly. That sounds like a paid partnership. They created advertorial content articles, photos, even a print pullout promoting the charities Nike funded. It generated income while aligning with their social mission, a smart collaboration.
And digital platforms are obviously huge for them.
It's massive, no paywall on the website, which gets decent traffic. Instagram is vital, nearly 6,000 followers, regular engagement's their main promotional tool.
They face setbacks, though, like a distributor going bankrupt.
Yeah, during the pandemic. But they ran a successful crowdfunder for issue #5 Defiant Beauty, which showed the community support. It actually sold out eventually. Rona sounded really positive after that.
And the events, THIIRD Intersect events.
Yeah, things like panels, discussions, even cookouts or sports days. They're ways to promote the mag, sell copies, but also, crucially, to build that real-world community connection. They publicize them online and through social media.
How does this fit with someone like David Hesman-Hall and his cultural industries theory? He
Right.
talks about large companies minimizing risk.
Right, often through formatting, using stars, sequels, etc. THIIRD is doing the opposite in many ways.
Also,
They're independent, celebrating diversity, which can be seen as commercially risky by some. They avoid heavy advertising reliance. They deliberately cross gender boundaries, explore complex identities in that third queer space. It's not about fitting a formula.
but it's still a risky venture.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge investment of time and passion. But they're building a cultural hub for social change. Hesman Hall also talks about the internet's potential for democratization.
Allowing individuals to create their own media.
Exactly. THIIRD embodies that. They saw a gap, used digital tools to create their own platform. They have to be agile, seek collaborations, but fiercely protect their independence. They're definitely digital optimists in Hesman Hall's terms.
Okay, finally, let's look at media audiences. Who is THIIRD for? How do they connect with their readers?
Well, unlike mainstream mags that slice and dice audiences for advertisers, THIRD's audience seems more organically defined because they're not primarily serving advertisers.
So who did Rona Azuma say reads it?
She described it as very people of color-centered, women-led, and queer-focused, naturally attracting people who identify that way. But also anyone interested in music, art, fashion, photography, and crucially anyone who cares about making society better for those communities. It's niche, but also potentially quite broad within that niche.
How do they attract that audience?
Through that striking aesthetic we talked about, the sophisticated design, the arresting photos of interesting people, it sparks curiosity. It also offers educational insight into different cultures and experiences.
And they address the audience as a community.
Very much so.
Yeah.
People interested in art, culture, social change. The language in the About Us is direct, confident. Elsewhere, it's more informal, friendly. Using colloquialism, showing the team, it builds connection. That Instagram clip showing the team chatting felt very inclusive.
Their uniqueness is part of the appeal then. Maybe inspired by mags like Galdem, but doing their own
Oh.
thing.
Yeah, Rona acknowledges Galdem, but sees Third as having perhaps a broader focus. And she contrasts it with traditional outlets still packaging things for dominant Western tastes. Third offers an alternative.
And they actively invite audience participation.
Definitely. The website has clear contact us buttons for different things, saying hi, asking questions, pitching ideas. There's a detailed submission process. They want you to get involved.
And Instagram keeps people updated on events.
Yeah. It positions Third as a hub, keeping the community informed. They even put out calls for professional help for issues, showing they're nurturing talent within their audience base.
And their reach is global, not just UK-based.
Through print distribution and the website, yes.
Yeah.
Content like the Skater UKTS piece or the South Asian Diaspora Project has international relevance.
And the podcast.
That reaches a global audience via standard platforms, too, potentially covering different topics than the mag. They even did a takeover with Foundation FM.
The all-female South London radio station.
Right. Another platform created by young women of color feeling marginalized by the mainstream. It's that DIY culture, enabled by digital tech, creating spaces for connection. A natural partner for Third.
It feels like THIIRD is constantly growing, aiming to empower creatives, be a hub.
Absolutely. Which brings us to maybe Clay Shirky's ideas about the end of audience.
How does that fit?
Shirky talks about audiences becoming participants, creators, prosumers. Third actively encourages that. It's not just passive reception. Submit ideas, attend events, contribute. It's much more interactive.
What about Gerbner's cultivation theory? The idea that media shapes our view of reality over time.
Well, mainstream media often cultivates certain dominant ideologies through repetition. Third is consciously trying to counter that.
By foregrounding underrepresented perspectives.
Exactly. Engaging with Third could potentially cultivate a different awareness in its audience, an awareness of inequalities, of the narrowness of mainstream beauty standards, of diverse experiences. It's cultivating a counter-narrative, perhaps.
So wrapping up this deep dive into THIIRD magazine,
Yeah.
what are the key takeaways?
We've seen how their unique media language, their strong commitment to representation, their resourceful approach as an independent media industry player, and their way of engaging their audience all work together. It's all deeply embedded in its social and cultural context.
Yeah, it's really clear that THIIRD is much more than just a publication. It's a platform, a community hub, actively challenging norms and amplifying voices that really need to be heard.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought for you listening. Think about the independent media you engage with. How do they balance their values with the tough economic realities?
And how does your own engagement reading, listening, sharing, supporting actually contribute to keeping those diverse voices visible and sustainable?
It's worth considering. And absolutely check out THIIRD's website and their podcast. See it for yourself.